fantastic to be here with all of your smiling faces. My name is Savannah Peterson. I run a company called Savvy Millennial where I work with future tech, and I have a lot of international dialogues on stages like this about our future. So I'm super pumped to be a part of this panel. Before we get started, I want to see everybody in a cowboy hat. If you do not have a Dutch cowboy hat, I'm going to be really disappointed for the rest of this panel. We're going to have some beautiful photographs of this, and I think there's a lot of spirit. The Minister of Taiwan is in a cowboy hat right now. If you cannot pull it off, I am really disappointed. There are no excuses, ladies and gentlemen. There are no excuses. Okay, so this is going to be the last of you seeing me on the stage, probably. I'm going to stand off to the side, but you will hear my voice, so at least you know who I am now. And as I ask the panelists to come to the stage, they're going to be introducing themselves, but I'm going to ask them 3 questions. So the 3 things the panelists are about to say to get you warmed up for this event is you're going to say who they are, what got them interested in this industry. Yes, I love seeing these hats flying around. Great job, guys. What got them into AR and VR. They're going to talk about what they're most passionate about in the industry, why they get up in the morning and do what they do. And then the last question they're going to answer for you in their introduction is what is the biggest myth in the industry right now? Because we want to bring some real talk to this event. Oh, this is great. Hello, everyone on this side. I'm sorry I was giving you my back before. Let's get some cowboy hats in the back. Definitely need some cowboy hats back there. Looks like there's a stack. All right, so without further ado, our first panelist is Arthur Van Hoff.
Hi there. My name is Arthur Van Hoff. I'm from Holland. I've lived in the United States in Silicon Valley for 25 years. I've been here long enough to do 5 startups so far. I started at Sun Microsystems where I worked on the Java programming language, and I've taken companies public, raised financing. 5 years ago I started a company called Jaunt VR. We do movies in VR. That turned out to be a great business. It's growing very fast. We have over 100 people. We have offices in LA and Shanghai and London. VR is a very, very exciting space. And I think the biggest myth in VR is that VR is hard, and I think VR is actually easy. Okay, here we go.
Great answer. I love that. So if you're someone who's thinking about getting involved in VR or bringing it to your business, definitely do it, and definitely talk to Arthur and the rest of our panelists. Okay, now our second contestant in AR, VR in the Holland Pavilion today is Dr. Christopher Perry.
Hello, I'm not from Holland. Okay, so very briefly, I've been in VR for a long time. Started way back in the 90s. What I'm mostly excited about is I originally started out as an architect. That's actually what my education's in. And as an architect, it was always very hard to explain to people, even to myself, what a space is, what it can be, what it would look like. Then when I was doing product design, same issue. And what I really love with VR and AR is we can finally look at the space around us and better interact with it and be with it. And then my biggest myth, Loch Ness Monster. I think I'm going to go with that. I think that's. I guess the biggest myth is that this is all new, and it really isn't. I started doing research back in the 80s. I did my own VR stuff early 90s. So it's been around. The technology is way better, but there's so much work that's been done in medicine, psychology, presence, that Google search, there's great research, a lot of people out there that you can talk to who can tell you a lot of things that you can build upon to make even better and greater products and experiences. That's it.
Excellent. I love that. I personally believe in the Loch Ness Monster and Santa, but we'll get to deeper myths moving forward. Last but certainly not least, and I see some new people in the crowd, please get a cowboy hat. Last and certainly not least, we have Oliver from Media Monks. Come on up, Oliver.
Hello guys, my name is Oliver, working for Media Monks, one of the global creative production companies in the world, having 10 offices globally with about 750 people. Super exciting. My personal role is I'm managing director and founder of the wonderful Media Monks West Coast office based out of Los Angeles, which is super exciting. Silicon Beach, so to say. As for the biggest myth, that's a tough one, Savannah. I like that you start. It's a curveball. The biggest myth I would say is that for some of the less tech-savvy people, a lot of people tell me that VR and AR are the same thing. That is obviously not the case. So these are two completely different worlds where VR creates an own environment that allows for you to completely emerge in that world, where AR adds a layer to the world around you, which is a huge myth. So yeah, excited to be here. Thank you, Savannah.
Great. That was awesome. All right, I'm all for the curveballs. I kind of don't know where to put myself, so I'm just going to awkwardly get close. It's great. So, to let you know what's going to happen for the next 45 minutes, we're going to be talking a bit first about the history and what's gotten us here today where we are. We're going to be talking about Dutch applications and what VR and AR means in the Netherlands as well as globally. And we're also going to be talking about the future. Hey, girl. And it's going to be a blast. So to start us off, one of the things I think is really cool about this panel is two people here have been working on VR since the 90s, since the early 90s. And I don't know about you guys, but I didn't find out that VR had been around since the 90s until about a year ago. So why don't, and I'm going to throw this first to you, Christopher. What do you think has been the biggest catalyst that brought VR mainstream?
So mainstream, I mean like in the last few years. The cell phone. The cell phone's the catalyst because back when I was doing my original research in the 90s, it was always very difficult to get software. It was difficult to create content, and it was amazingly difficult to distribute. But the cell phone now can do everything. You can pick up your cell phone and you can do AR in real time. I can put it in a piece of cardboard and I can have an experience. That changed everything, and it's just been rolling ever since.
Well, I think he's right. I mean, the cell phone is not just from a software perspective, the catalyst, but also from a hardware perspective, because they miniaturized all these sensors and screen technology and battery technology and processor technology to the point where you could literally, put it in a headset and make it work. The first Oculus was literally a Samsung screen from a Samsung cell phone and a piece of 3D printed plastic. And it kind of proves that the core of the new wave of VR is cell phone technology.
I think that's right. Pocket computers have changed everything that we do, and I feel embarrassed I don't have a Samsung right now, so don't look at my phone. It's okay. We'll amend that. So for those of you who don't know, Media Monks is a creative content company where Oliver works. So I'm curious, content's taken many forms for many decades. When did AR and VR become an interest as far as a content play for you at Media Monks?
Great question, thank you. So VR and AR has been a big thing for us for the stretch of the last few years. You can see some of the content that we created, both AR and VR, on the screen on your right or left hand side, depending where you're at in the crowd. I think when it comes to AR, we've always been bullish on the potential of augmented reality and the power it has to change the way you interact with the world around you. That to me is and to us as a company has been super exciting and hard to ignore, being in digital content production since the early 2000s. When it comes to VR, I believe the power it has to be high impact content, especially in the entertainment realm, is truly exciting, as well as the potential for it to be great when it comes to mass or big social connected experiences at scale. Something that I'm very much looking forward to and how that's going to shape. So to recap, yeah, I would say it's been part of our growth over the last 2 years, and we're very much looking forward to see where it will take us in the next few 5 years.
I think such a potential with the content. I mean, just looking at polar bears right now, if you're not thinking about climate change when you see something like that, I don't know what you're thinking about. Arthur, I appreciate that you've played in both the software and the hardware space. Has there been more obstacles to the progress of VR on the software side or on the hardware side?
Well, when we started our company, we decided to start to sort of invent VR filmmaking in a sense, and there were no cameras available, so we had to build our own. So we kind of talked ourselves into the hardware business early on. However, we decided to get out of the hardware business because, as we found, hardware is called hardware because it's hard, and we've gone back to being a pure technology and content company, which is much more scalable. Building hardware is something that's really necessary, and it's sort of catalyzed a lot of new development when it comes to headsets and to cameras and other equipment. But it's really all about the software and the content. Well, it's interesting. A lot of our customers are headset manufacturers that come to us and say, please give us content because we built this thing and now what? Right? So creating great content and applications is critical for VR and for AR. And we plan to continue to play a big role in that.
That's awesome. Okay, so now that we all know how we got where we are today in virtual and augmented reality, we're going to shift towards your hats and talk about the Netherlands for a second. So, as the only non-Dutch on the panel, believe it or not, I am properly Dutch. Christopher, what was your first thought when you got asked to be on a Dutch VR AR panel?
You're in VR? Really? Okay. Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't know. I walked the area here before the panel started, and it's pretty impressive. A lot of the work that's going on. So yeah, very eye-opening. I did not know. You need to tell more people. Yes.
I like doing that. I like advertising. It's sort of what I do. So, since you are two Dutchies, what would you like to tell the audience and Christopher about Dutch VR and AR? And I'm going to start with you, Oliver, since you've done it both in the Netherlands as well as in the United States.
It's an interesting question. I don't know if it's bound to geolocation. I think great content comes from great creative minds, and they are not bounded to a certain area. So there's not a distinct difference between content creation in either Europe or the US. Having that said, we've seen a lot of Dutch startups and companies being acquired by the big US giants, which speaks to something, I guess. We're doing something right, the Dutchies. And then on the other hand, if I have to try and pin it to something, I would say, also for the startups here, focus on verticals. What for us has been very interesting is, for example, automotive. There have been the guys that helped us produce a lot of interesting, especially a lot of VR content, because there were budgets that allowed for us to do that, and they tend to be first movers when it comes to new tech, either that be AR, AI, or VR. So that for us has been a great way to find moments for us to shine when it comes to content production.
That's great. Arthur, you want to say something?
So I was one of the speakers at the first VR day in Amsterdam, and it was really cool. I think Holland is a great place for VR for a number of reasons. One is people are well educated, they're well motivated, and they're very creative. I think a lot of really creative content is coming out of Holland, and we have an office in LA, and And often people in LA tend to make movies in VR. They literally sort of take the movie approach. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and title rolls, and all that sort of stuff. And it's actually somewhat boring in VR. What you want to do is kind of rethink movies and do it again without that history. So I think the Dutch are very creative. They're very well located. That also helps in the middle of Europe. And they speak English, and that's helpful. And they're tall. Yeah, all the short ones drowned, by the way.
I think that's great. I really like what you just touched on, because it'll be a good transition to us into talking about the future in a second. But often when we get a new tech, we just do what we've already done before on a new platform. So one of my favorite quotes is actually from Peter Weimerhausen, the CEO of Shapeways, who I used to work for in the Netherlands, if anyone's a 3D printing fan. And as he said, when we got 3D printers, or when we got VR, when we get new tech, we just do exactly the same thing that we've done before. So like with computers, we wrote letters to each other and we called it email. So I think we're kind of at that stage a little bit in this industry where we haven't quite seen a mass adoption application that really shows people what it's capable of doing from a storytelling and immersive perspective. Yeah.
I would love to ask. I can only agree to Christopher and Arthur. Their point, I can only agree, is that the mobile phone has been the accelerator for VR and AR adoption. I think about 2 years ago, everyone was hoping to have a Samsung Gear VR or cardboard under their Christmas tree, and unfortunately that did not happen as of yet. I can't wait, but I am excited about the progress happens when it comes to distribution. It's going to allow for us to reach a lot more people. So yeah.
So actually, on that note, transitioning a little bit to the future, and I'm going to bring it right back to Oliver because you just brought it up. It's what do you think is limiting that distribution right now? What needs to happen? What do we need to be demanding or pushing for?
I like that. I strongly believe these fine gentlemen can add to what I'm about to say. Some three examples that have been holding us back is processing and rendering power. Field of view. A good example is the HoloLens, who do an amazing. They have an amazing product, although their field of view is very limiting. If you tilt your head, you miss a few things. Although I think they're the best when it comes to AR headsets. So field of view, processing power, as well as battery life on mobile phones. So I think these three things, as a sum, creates the view of unpolished content. It is not of the high crisp quality that we want it to be as of yet. So that to me have been bottlenecks up to this day.
Absolutely. I think, since we're talking about cinematic experiences, Arthur, I'm going to send it to you.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I always tell people is that VR is something I do once a week. I put on a headset and I immerse myself. I take half an hour. It's not something I do every day, not during breakfast, because I won't be able to find my food. That's clearly a limiting factor for VR. VR is a great tool. It's very immersive. It works very well, but you do it on the show floor. You do it once a week at home. AR, however, I think is going to be much more popular because you can do it anytime. You can do it right here in front of you on the table, and you just need your phone. You don't need a HoloLens if you want to do AR. That's going to create a much bigger market and a much greater opportunity. Eventually, that phone will disappear into your glasses. And Microsoft, as you pointed out, has done a great job in creating sort of a vision of what that might look like. But once it appears in your glasses, you can watch content being played out in front of you on the kitchen table while you're chopping onions and doing your chores around the house. That is going to be very compelling and is going to be incredibly popular. But we're still a few years away from that. In the meantime, I think we're going to see a huge amount of growth in sort of mobile AR, which is obviously a big market.
Definitely, I have to agree with that. As kind of the answer I was going to give. So this mind reading, really freaky. You gotta stop it. Yeah, mobile VR to me is an entertainment platform. So it's when you want to consume entertainment. So if I'm playing a video game or something, I don't play video games every day. I'll play maybe once a week. I'll jack in and play whatever I'm going to play or watch whatever movie I want to watch. AR is different. You can use it all the time and all over the place. And what's going to happen with AR is it's going to be a productivity tool. You'll use it in the office, right? And what really made when you think about personal computers and how it kind of broke into mass adoption, it wasn't consumers. It was through the office. So everyone, when they went to work, they had this computer that they can do their Word and everything else. But when you went home, no one had a personal computer. But you were exposed to it at the office, and productivity was an obvious thing. And eventually, it crept its way into the home. AR is going to do the same thing. And AR is going to be a productivity tool. You'll be using it a couple hours a day. And eventually, it's going to creep its way into the house. I do agree. I think it's a couple years. I think that's about the right range. Maybe about a year and a half, 2.5, somewhere in there. I think that's the range. A lot of the funny thing is, a lot of the technology has been solved. So we already have all this working. Now the problem is, can I get this working at a price that people are willing to pay? And that's actually the harder part. So we can do it already. I've done it. It's awesome. But we just gotta get that price down, and we'll do it. We'll get there. And then all of a sudden, kind of how a cell phone is ubiquitous everywhere. Everyone has a cell phone. Eventually, everyone's gonna have these glasses. That's just part of your ubiquitous experience. So that's what will come.
That is a fantastic way to lead me into my next question. So you all sort of have different end customers right now. Do you think that AR and VR, and it's okay if you want to separate these, because I personally think they might be different. Do you think that it's going to be more of a corporate play or a consumer play? Where are we going to see the most action? You look zealous, Chris. Let's do it. You look ready.
A corporate play versus a consumer play? Yes. I'm going to stick with that. It'll happen at the same time. So what will happen is, like if I say to you, is PC, corporate, or consumer? Yes. It's both. Right, but what happens is, when it, as I thought what the question was too, I mean, like I said before, it's going to go corporate first, then it'll be consumer, but eventually, in not very much time, it's going to happen like that. It'll just bleed across both. You won't think about it. You don't think about your PC as this is a corporate or a thing. It's like, which model do I want? How much power do I want? Same thing with our watches, right? Which watch do I want? And it starts to become a style thing after a while. Your AR experience, your VR experience is going to basically bleed the edges.
I believe that so either corporate or consumer in 5 to 10 years. I think corporate first, because it is for corporate. We all see it where the NASA is training their astronauts with using tools of VR and AR and HoloLens. It's already out there, but I think from a corporate perspective, there are a lot of industries that really there's a need for it, because there's a clear ROI, return on investment, when people invest in that type of stuff. Think about architecture or construction. So I think that's going to take off a little bit faster, simply because you invest X and you get result Y, crystal clear. Where consumer adoption will certainly happen, might be slightly later, although we'll see where the world will take us in the next few years. But being a content producer, I might be slightly biased, but the way we are going to consume content in 10 years is going to be absolutely different from now. Some people say VR is a new medium. It actually has the potential to be the last medium, because it can carry all the mediums that have been developed over the last 60 years. It can carry that all in this last medium, which is interesting to me.
That's fascinating. Arthur, do you have anything to chime in there? Do you have a particular opinion?
I mean, we are basically building the tools to reach consumers. So we work with a lot of corporations and brands who are really our customers to reach those consumers. But the end goal is to really create a big audience, and the bigger the audience, the faster the technology can move. So, but I agree, there's going to be tools for corporate use, like architecture, etc., and design. But really, the killer app, I think, is going to have to be a consumer app.
I think we saw it a little bit with Pokemon Go and with AR. I mean, that's the fastest. We got 50 million users to any technological thing in the world ever. Not that I'm necessarily a fan, but if you are, cheers to you. But I think that's interesting just in how fast that scaled, to your point, that once it breaks, it'll really, really pop. So since we are here in the wonderful startup pavilion with many startups, first of all, how many people here work for a startup? How many people here work for a startup in the AR, VR space? This is fantastic. So this question is for you. This is where you take notes. What do you guys think is the role of startups in the AR revolution? Because obviously Samsung, you're sitting on the R&D side. You got a powerhouse of people behind you. What do you think is the most strategic, or what's your key advice to these startups in the audience right now?
Well, I'm a serial offender. This is my 7th startup. I think the role of startups and the challenge for startups is to innovate in a way that bigger companies are not able to do. You think about new things that are a little bit over the horizon, but that kind of come from left field. We jumped on the Oculus Rift when everybody thought, well, what a crazy idea, right? And that's the right time to do it. So you got to figure, what is next, and then jump on that. And then my experience is that a lot of times bigger companies will adopt the technology. If you're lucky, they'll try to copy it and create a market, and if you're really lucky, they'll try to buy it. Right? So that's a good exit strategy.
100%. Stop mind reading. Absolutely. So sitting on the more of the corporate side, startups, even if we could, sometimes we decide not to take a chance on something because of the risks involved. So a lot of times there'll be 10 startups trying to do something that we're interested in. It's actually better to look at the startups and say, wow, you're really doing a really great job. Let's work with you. And that actually is faster and better than us just trying to do everything ourselves, because we can't. So for advice to startups is pick your niche and do a really good job. Find your verticals, like this is what we're going to do, and we're going to nail this. And then when you nail this, you're going to see a lot of corporations like mine knocking at the door.
To add to that, that was good. That was good. I think all the things that you guys are doing, it's not easy. We feel the pain. AR and VR is not easy, and to reiterate, it is extremely production heavy. Research and development, talent, time, cost. It's a huge investment to produce something that is of actual value. So what I tend to say our clients, when they want to do VR or AR, I mention if you throw pocket money at it, you get pocket money results. This is not easy. The things that we're doing are not easy, and I also need to make some money for the company, of course. So that on the one hand. And on the other hand, VR and AR is extremely exciting, but there's so much more out there. I've seen some startups in here in the world of that are moving in the world of AI, for example, and programmatic. Try and bridge these new technologies and find ways or unique opportunities to explore. I think Google Lens is a good example where they do AI as well as AR and etc. etc. So
just to highlight, and guys, forgive me if I'm totally out of control with this, but I think what we've discussed here has been fantastic. We've talked a lot about how there's a great need for more content, that the content we create is very highly produced, and it sort of has to be that way right now, that there's a lot of room for new companies, and that geography doesn't matter. You can be in the Netherlands, you can be in the United States, you might have to go back and forth a little bit, depending on what you're working on, but there's no reason to feel limited by where you are. Your message can transmit through any headset, and most of these are powered by our pocket computers. years. So this being the single most exciting innovation in this space, which is pretty cool when you think about the number of headsets that we've had. So hopefully, in the time that I've done the recap, you've had a chance to put your questions together. Any curious folk in the audience?
Hi, my name is Ross Pace. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of a Space, registered over there. We're a VR and 3D development firm. This is a question really for all the startups here. You mentioned about knocking on your door. What is the best way for us as startups to really interact with you and to show you what we're doing? Because it's often kind of a scary thing thinking, how do I approach Samsung? How do I bring what I've been working on and I'm passionate about to you and share that with you?
It's an excellent question.
Yeah, and it's not easy. So before you even try a Samsung or any other company, make sure your story's straight. Make sure you understand why you're in your space. Make sure you know your space. Know your nation. I like that. And then all companies, we have dedicated departments that all they do is reach out and talk to startups. That's all they do, tech resourcing. So every company has this. So there's people who talk to startups every day. They are always open. They're crawling around here. I'm sure 7 or 8 of them just walked by and I didn't notice. They duck really low. But when you really own your space, the first people who are going to find you is probably the tech press, right? So you do something really good somewhere. You do a good show. You do something like it, or whatever. The press will pick that up. Our guys are reading this stuff. If we read something and we say, wow, you know what? I think this is interesting. I think there's a way we can work together, or we can use this, or maybe even just do an investment, who knows? Then that reach out will happen. So that's one way. The second way to do it is go to Samsung events. Go to Samsung Developer Conference, right? So you got a whole room of Samsung people in there. So just start talking to people at the event. Sooner or later, you're going to get directed to the person you need to talk to. But I wouldn't talk to anyone. Don't do anything until you really got your story straight, your technology straight, your market straight. It's like, I got my pitch, I'm ready. Your elevator pitch has to be tight. Okay, then do it.
I love that. That's fantastic. You only get to make a first impression once, and I think that's always really important to, even if it's not the fit then, if they impress you, you'll keep talking. Who else has a question for our wonderful panelists?
Yeah, hi, thanks. Thank you for the nice talk. I'm absolutely not in the AR space or the VR space, so I'm new to this. We're much more into connecting all kinds of APIs together, like a European if this then that. So for this, I'm thinking about how that could influence also your space, and that the location for AR indoors needs to be very good if you want to do things with that, or am I missing there something? Is that not something that is needed to make a good AR experience indoors and be really effective in the office?
So Google has already shown how to do that. So one technology that is used in AR is SLAM, that is simultaneous location and motion, and it integrates all the sensors in your phone, and it can pick up key data points in your house, like the corner of a chair and the table and the lights, and figure out where it is in space and build up a model of the room. Now, once you've walked around your house a couple of times, it actually knows the inside of the house, and then when you turn the phone back on later, it knows exactly where you are. So indoor location tracking is almost a solved problem by now, and it's going to be built into your phone by the end of the year, almost. So yes, but it's definitely something we need to have.
And so to echo that a little bit more, there'll be a second component of that. That'll be the AI component. So as the SLAM algorithm is picking up its tracking points and building up its map, and then you're geolocated, the other thing that's going to start happening is it's going to start identifying objects in the room, knowing what is where. Because one of the issues with SLAM technology is if I have a major object and an object moved, that's going to mess up my map. But if I know what the object is, and I understand that object has a certain volatility to it, there's a likelihood this object will move. I will know in my algorithms of how much, how I can predict how much I should rely on that object. So if I have a clock on the wall, odds are it's not going to move. I can rely on that as a reference point. If I have a soda can on the table, that's a highly volatile object. So I won't be relying on that for my map and my tracking. And what's interesting is this extends beyond your home. So right now, when you do Google Maps, and it can predict within a minute of driving from point A to point B, that's because it has all this data from all these other cars that are previous and currently on that road.
Any final questions? Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I am in the AR world. We developed the first cardboard of augmented reality, where Pokemon Go is just 2D. We make it true 3D. But because the HoloLens, for example, way too expensive, Meta, etc., etc. So the adoption in the market is less. How do you think those heavy, bulky headsets will evolve? Okay, in glasses at some point, but evolve for the mass markets. Do you have any ideas or thoughts about that?
I mean, the HoloLens is a great device, in the sense that it incorporates all the major components into a single headset: battery, CPU, GPU, HPU, display, audio. It's a visionary device, but just like the iPhone 1, which is only 10 years old, it's a sign of things to come. And I'm sure that Samsung here is working on a much better HoloLens. No?
I can't tell you that. No. All I can say is, just like with the iPhone 1, when I first got the iPhone, actually I hated the iPhone when I first got it because I was a Trio lover. And then I learned about jailbreaking. Then I became the biggest Apple fan ever. And then after a while I said, forget Apple. And then went to Samsung. You hear me? Forget Apple, go to Samsung. Anyways, we just started. You're going to see the computational abilities, the sensor abilities, linking up to AI. AR is going to become so accessible to the public from a price and form factor perspective in the next few years. Just need to give some time. What that form factor will look like, I don't really know. But absolutely, I mean, if you're a startup, start thinking now, right? You got an 18-month window to start thinking about how you want to put your technology together, because you want to be in the front. So when companies, larger companies say, you know what, we think we know what we want to do in AR, we think we figured this out, we think we know how we want to go. First thing we're going to look at is, okay, let's look at the startup scene. Who has the pieces of parts we want? You want to be ready. It's like, yeah, I have this part. Here we go. So, yeah, it's start now.
Great question. Thank you. From a hardware perspective, it's hard to tell you where we're going. That's why it's a great question. But Arthur hinted towards it earlier today. We need better content. It's a bit of a chicken egg conversation, and I think what's going to help us in 2018 is new technologies that help us create better content, light field cameras, volumetric capturing, better rendering and processing power that allows for us to create higher quality. These are all things that helps us create better content, which is in the end going to help develop the hardware as well. So yeah, and then secondly, as some sort of advice that Christopher hinted towards, I think embrace change. This is an industry that's so fast moving that I understand that you don't want to kill your darlings, and you created a proposition that is absolutely phenomenal, works really well for you, but there's a big chance that Samsung or another big giant releases a new piece of hardware that is completely different or better at what the stuff that is out there does. So embrace that and stay dynamic with your company and change to stay, again, contextually relevant to the local market needs and get in the spotlight of likes like Christopher and Samsung.